Hello Internet, RetroKevin here. In today's video I'm going to continue working on those two Commodore 64s from my last videos. I desoldered the rest of the chips from the broken board so that I can test them in the working system. So let's head over to the workbench to get to testing. As you can see, I have the working board all hooked up and ready for testing. The 4 chips on the left there are the ones that didn't have sockets from the other C64. I'm going to test them one at a time so that I can figure out if they are working or not. I'll start work on the one labeled 6510CBM. These are a little tough going in because the pins still have a little bit of solder on them. Full boot up, that chip is good. Now for the chip labeled 901226-01. It looks good. Next I have 2 chips labeled 6526. These are the same chips, so it doesn't matter which one we start with. Again, just fine. Now the next and last one. Okay, so they all work. I have now tested all the larger chips from the C64 that had no video. I was able to find in the last video that the chip labeled 906114-01 and the fuse were no good. Replacing that chip with a known working one and that fuse, I was able to go from no video to a black screen. At this point, I may just keep these as spare parts in case something happens to my working one. With that said, let's head back over to the workbench and clean up the keyboard and case and get a nice looking and working C64. I'm going to start with taking the rest of the keyboard apart. There should be 8 Phillips screws holding it to the case, and this one only has 7. We'll set that case off to the side and clean that once we get all the buttons out. Now we'll have to get this backboard out of the way. And there's a bunch of little screws on this, and I think the total there is 23. I'm putting everything into a bin just off camera so I don't lose anything. Now, a few of these screws are hiding under this tape here. And that's soldered in. I should have seen that beforehand. We won't worry about desoldering these. Just pull them out once the solder is melted. And here's all the contacts for each button. We'll clean these up later as well. I'll start off by removing this broken button. Luckily, the other keyboard has this key on it, so I have a replacement on hand. Now, let's start the process of removing every button. I found the best technique was to use my chip lifter and gently leverage the keys out. I don't show this on camera, but the shift lock has 2 clips. One on the left, one on the right. Push both of these in and the button comes right out. This will take a bit, so I'll cut to when they're all out. And here we go. This is pretty dusty, but really not too bad. I should note, the spacebar has a different spring from the rest, so set that one apart from the others. I cleaned the buttons and the case up in a sink with some soapy water. And while all that is drying, I'm going to clean up the contacts with some isopropyl alcohol and a few cotton swabs. I had to cut the audio from this part. The fan in the background drying the parts up was drowning everything else out. Now that everything is clean and dry, let's start putting back together that keyboard. I'm going to start with the spacebar, as I think that will probably be the most difficult. Now remember, this spring is different from the others. We just have to make sure that button is lined up with the plunger, or stamp, whatever you want to call it. And it should click right on. Next, I'm going to get all the keys sort of organized here. Again, this will take a bit, so jump at it coming up here. I took a picture of the keyboard before starting. That way I know I'm putting the keys back in the right spot. After doing a few of these, you get a rhythm going. Another jump to when I'm done here. The shift lock key will snap right into place. Done with that part, now we can solder that key back in. Make sure to get the wire lined up right and try not to bend it too much. Now we'll get those 23 screws back in. Next, we'll put the keyboard back in the case. I borrowed a screw from that other keyboard, so I have all 8 now. We can work on the motherboard now. I'm going to clean up those contacts before putting it back in the case. Again, just some isopropyl alcohol and a cotton swab. Now back in the case it goes. There's 4 screws on the right side here. Yeah, I'm going to apply some new thermal compound to this metal plate. Just a small dab will do it. This has 5 screws, 2 in the front, 3 in the back. Now we can plug back in our keyboard and LED. Once we get the 3 remaining screws in the bottom of the case, I'm going to hook it up to a TV and mess around with it a little bit. Of course, I have to do a quick print loop. And I'll test the sound, make sure that's working. That's a sweet sound. So these last 3 videos have been quite the journey for me, but I now have a complete working Commodore 64 and some spare parts. I also learned a little bit about the C64, but I still have a lot to go. If you can think of anything I should try testing on that other board, feel free and let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you liked this video. And if you really enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe, as it'll really help out me and the channel quite a lot. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.